Okay, thanks, Frederick. So let me start by saying the usual. I always start with a disclaimer just to ensure that we set the proper tone. So essentially, we hear from me, and I would say also the other speakers, it's not financial advice, and you're always encouraged to do your own research. Now, the future of work. If we look at previous points in history, every time we've had some form of tectonic shift in the marketplace, it also impacts how work is structured. Look at when the Industrial Revolution came on, it changed the nature of work as we knew it. Now we're in the technological revolution, and again, we are already seeing a shift in work as it's currently structured compared to, let's say, just maybe 5, 10 years ago. So I'm here to discuss what are some of the trends that we think are going to happen. Clearly, some of you may have different ideas or may have similar insights based on what you see happening in your respective countries. So let's start. The first one, this isn't a big secret anymore. I think we all see it happening in various shapes and forms in each of our locations. AI. But many times when we say AI, generally people associate AI with it's going to take away my job. It's going to mean less opportunities for for the future generation of the workforce. And I don't necessarily agree. Now, if you look at a couple of studies, particularly looking at the second bullet point, what it essentially says is if we are talking about jobs which don't really rely on the experience or the maturity of the job holder, then yes, certain sectors will be more vulnerable to automation. So think BPOs, call centers, where a huge element of the job is repetitive. You could actually automate that, and it's already happening. You could have AI agents handling the FAQs, and the person on the other side of the line wouldn't even know that they were discussing or chatting with an AI bot. The AI bot will actually some do alone or some that they do with Copilot. So, and you'll see what are those that stick out. Things like creating drafts and templates. Much simpler it becomes and quicker once they use something like Copilot. So what's the point? I think one of the things we all too often fail to consider is that technology itself is agnostic. It's neither good nor bad. And essentially, what will determine whether it's good or bad is your purpose, your intention, and what you do with the technology. Because I know that you've got a lot of the negative people out there who, when you talk AI, they think, Terminator and things like this. And of course, I'm not saying that can't happen, but the opposite can happen as well. And so here in I'm trying to show in this snapshot what are the possible things that can happen. So we've had one which we talked about earlier, AI. But what is that also going to do? If you end up now, think for a moment that you've transferred the routinary, or let's say the mundane tasks to AI agents, what does that mean now for the human side? Then you've got to move up the value chain. That's why we talk about reskilling or upskilling. So you'd be looking at things like relationship management, life coaching. So things which AI maybe, I mean, given how technology continues to advance rapidly, we may get to a stage where AI becomes more sentient, but we're not at that stage yet right now. So, one of the things that you're going to see because of AI is that you're going to have a shift. I would expect to see that people will start looking at other sets of skills which are not necessarily capable of being replaced by AI at the moment. What else do we believe we're going to see? You're also going, you already see it. You see that there is a shift also, or a focus on enhancing work-life balance. And one of the reasons that that has become possible is precisely because AI now allows you to remove some of the more repetitive tasks, which previously would have taken quite a bit of your time. And since now you can leave that to automation, it gives you some additional time which you can use to create a work-life balance. Hand in hand with that, similar to what happened, think back to when we had the lockdowns during COVID, which happened globally, in some cases a bit more restrictive than others. But one of the things we had was hybrid work arrangements, or essentially you work from home. So now we're also seeing that because again you can automate things, and depending on the nature of your business, the top leaders have seen that there are certain efficiencies that don't necessarily drop off just because you're no longer physically in the office. So what will that mean? For industries like real estate, so companies before which may have considered getting 2 to 3 floors to house all of their staff might be able to do with one and a half, and then just resort to shifting the staff because a number of them are doing work from home. So you can see that it's all interrelated, and it started primarily because you've got a technological shift. So let me just go now a little bit into some of these things we talked about. Degree based is still important. I mean, like, if I'll go to one extreme, if you had a college degree versus a high school degree, I'm sure there will be many people who would agree with me that the person with the college degree would probably still have a much better chance at finding gainful employment compared to somebody who has a high school degree. But again, because of the advent of technology, we expect to see a focus also on having skills based, which means your degree may no longer be enough. People are going to want to see what sort of skills you picked up along the way, either from your current employer, previous employers, things which, you hear this often. They didn't teach you in business school, but you learned it on the job training, some internships you had. So essentially, additional things or value added components that you bring to the table, but you learned it, which are not necessarily degree based. Which leads me to my next point, are still going to matter. And as I indicated here, training, some internships you had. So essentially, additional things AI is going to shift the value of the work components towards human judgment and decision making. Why? Because they're going to be doing the crunching, which now passes on to the human side, which are not necessarily to enable us to make more data driven decisions. which leads me to
But
my
the onus is still going to be on
next
us.
point.
And the example I like
Are
giving is
still going to
you could
matter.
set up
And as I
an AI bot,
indicated
for
here,
example,
training,
to
some
monitor your
internships
There is a
clients you
theory that
had.
suggests
So
payment history.
essentially,
And the moment
additional
AI
things
is going to
delayed
shift
by
the
value
value,
of the
impose a
work
penalty.
components towards human
But what if one
judgment
of those
during the
clients is
decision
somebody
making.
who you've had
Why?
for 20
Because
years
they're
and was
going to
actually
be
the first
doing
corporate
that
client
coaching,
that gave you your big break?
which now
I'm
passes
certainly
on to the
sure
human
that
side.
you're
You're
not
not
going to want to
necessarily impose a
enable us
penalty
to
on
make
him
more
if he
data-driven
was late by a
decisions.
day.
Which leads me, so that goes back to my aspect of things like relationship building. That's not something that AI is going to be in a position to replace anytime soon. So soft skills, more than ever, we believe are still going to matter. And that's essentially the challenge for the workforce. Do not be complacent, be a lifelong learner. Once you have those additional skills, it's not as if they can extract that from your brain. You take that with you wherever you go. So take all the opportunities that you have to learn new skills. You will at some point in time be able to use it. And the last one, which we talked about earlier, is the return of remote work. This time, not necessarily out of necessity, but more because they've seen that can with also probably enhancing efficiency, because if you feel that there is more work-life balance, then you're more productive, you're more engaged with your work. So in a nutshell, those are some of the trends that we at Musagan see happening to the future of work. As I mentioned earlier, some of you may have different insights based on what's currently happening in your specific locations. And I'd certainly welcome an exchange on what you see happening in your areas. But before I end, I would just like to share that if you'd like to know more about what we do, visit our website at musagan.io. So with that, let me stop the screen sharing. And I'm happy to answer any questions, or as I mentioned earlier, if there are any insights, observations from participants in other areas, more than welcome to share.
Greatly appreciated. We appreciate that presentation once more, Mr. Femin. Yeah. Do we have any reactions or any comments? You wanna add to the conversation? Or you have a question or clarification? Presentation is on point.
Thanks, William.
Yeah. So, Mr. Fermin, we've been collaborating almost 2 years now. We haven't gotten a chance to sit down and have a conversation, and we want to take advantage of this platform. Um, I don't know how you see us adopting, for example, the remote working tools, AI, and other tools in the African context. Yeah, maybe you want to share the experience from the Philippines and how you see us maybe adapting. Is that something you can speak to?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's a great question, and certainly Africa. I mean,
that's the whole point of this tech summit, right? To be able to bring to the world the message that technology is here and Africa wants to have a central role in that technology. And certainly, I know a number of companies that are already using the AI tools, seeing how it can improve productivity. Remote work is going to be there. I mean, remote work, to be honest, that didn't even need AI to make the concept kick off. AI just helped accelerate it further. Because why? One of the things that the internet has done is it essentially truly made us a global interconnected marketplace. And I think you had mentioned in one of our previous discussions before, this has enabled, let's say, a team from Africa to be able to collaborate with a team in Europe, with a team in Asia, with a team in the Americas, making it much easier to do this compared to a time when you didn't have that sort of technology. So clearly, now that you've got the added boost of technology like AI, which continues to develop by leaps and bounds, I have no doubt in my mind that we're looking at a situation where things are certainly going to get better. Clearly, there will be first movers. Sometimes it might not necessarily turn out to be an advantage because you will sometimes be faced with you will end up making the mistakes. And so the latecomers will learn from the mistakes that the first movers essentially laid the path down for. But one of the things also that I think we've seen whenever you've got technological change is the market is growing pretty fast. So at the start, I believe there's going to be room for everybody until it reaches a stage of mass adoption, maturity. Then you start to expect that there will be a filtering, and some of the weaker players will simply either be bought out or will fall by the wayside. But thank you for that question.
Have to start from somewhere. And at MIBT, yeah, we are eager, to be part of this process, despite our technology or technological capabilities. For example, the quality of the internet and things like that, not being mature at the moment, but we don't have any excuse, right? We to improve
That's
as
right.
we go, isn't it?
That's true. I mean, I would tell people who ask before, there's nothing wrong with being a perfectionist. But if you ask me, rather than be a perfectionist, be a progressionist. Because that means as long as you're moving forward, this is, remember, for all of us, especially since we're all based in different countries, different stages of development, this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. It's a marathon, and the technology is going to continue to evolve. And things that we don't think are possible now, maybe in a year or two, will be. I have no doubt in my mind that Africa will be well positioned to be a key figure in that growth globally. And forums like this are one of the proper tools to try and get that message across.
I'm definitely loving the conversation. Bring that one up. So we'll continue collaborating with I don't know if William has gotten how to pronounce. How to pronounce. I don't know if I'm the only one struggling, you know. Yeah, but maybe William is gonna have to help me. I'm still struggling, but I'm gonna get it.
Go for the easiest, limitless.
Oh, limitless.
Yes.
Yeah, limitless. Okay. But I have to master how to say it, you know, so that it sounds natural and authentic as intended, right? Yeah. So thank you so much.
No worries, Frederick. I'm sure you'll get there.
Yes, with your guidance and support, I'm eagerly looking forward. Yeah. So in case there are marathon is a good word, being in latest tech for nearly, okay, that message has run. There's a comment in the chat, Mr. Msigen, Mr. Femin.
Right, and that's true.
Mm-hmm. Nearly half a century. Yeah, so Professor keeps hammering on half a century, nearly half a century.
If you look at the typical product life cycle, right? You start with there is the euphoria, the
Mm-hmm.
hype before it reaches, and then invariably you're going to have some of the, let's say, the ideas which really don't make sense fall by the wayside. But when the time that you get to what is called, what I'd like to call mass adoption, that will vary from product to product and technology to technology, and there's no one set time frame for that.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm loving the conversation. So the good part is that we've gotten started as Africa. We are actively participating in building our future. We are not waiting for others to do it for us. And we appreciate having like-minded individuals and institutions like yourselves collaborating with us on the continent. Professor Johannes keeps hammering half a century. I'm following you, Dan, three decades now. How do you call that? A combination of 3 decades. How do you call it? Half a century, 50, so 3 decades. What is that? Yeah, so
A serious
That's
time
what?
frame for it.
that's called young at heart.
What?
Young at heart.
Young at
Age
heart.
is but an age is but a number.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm loving the conversation, you know? Yeah, so yeah, this is what the global session is about, bringing different perspectives. And we really appreciate, you know, the collaboration that is happening on the African continent. You know, there's this global collaboration that is coming to Africa, and we really appreciate it. And just to also see the effort and the sacrifices our partners are making. Mr. Fermin, what is your local time right now?
Oh, it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
You see now, this is what I'm talking about. But you had to make all these sacrifices. You had to stay up, you know, past midnight your time, and then you are here with us having these conversations. So this is something we don't want to take for granted. Let's continue charting this path. Let's see how we work together, even as we take center stage ourselves as Africans, and then with the global support. So we really appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank
So we
you. It's
appreciate.
always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to chat with like-minded people. And I think if anything else, Frederick, one of the things I'd like to point out is
what you're doing is good. You look at what's happening in other countries and you use it as a guidepost. But I think that's what I want to emphasize. Use it as a guidepost,
Mm.
primarily because again, no two countries are alike. So let's say for those different, you're not there to follow somebody else's path. You're there to chart your own path. And you just look to what others have done to see what are the elements that make sense for Africa and those that don't make sense given the African setup. Nobody's forcing you to follow it. You're here to trailblaze your path by looking at what's happened with others.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm loving about this conversation. You see, if you remember, I mentioned that I've been involved in Kaizen methodology in my country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Right.
that is a Japanese concept that played a very key role in turning around the Japanese economy after the Hiroshima Nagasaki bombing, right, at the end of the Second World
Right.
War. Yeah. I had the privilege of studying these models when I was doing my undergrad. I looked at the American, ecosystems. I also studied the Japanese ecosystem. So I'm deep into it. Okay. Seeing how Japan managed to turn around the country in less than 10 years, and then having worked closely with Japanese counterparts and colleagues, I saw how Kaizen is deeply embedded in the culture. Kaizen is deeply embedded, it's a way of life. It starts from home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kaizen is a combination of two words. Kai means what? Is it good? And then Zen is the one which is good, right? Kaizen, because the combination, continuous improvement, two words. But I learned that this concept came from the US. The Americans call it CANI, CANI. That is an acronym for continuous and never ending improvement, right? So when the Japanese got, in fact, it's the Americans who went to Japan to help them rebuild their economy. And the Japanese embraced the help. But one thing they did was they never copied and pasted whatever they were getting from the West. The techniques, the concepts, the technologies, and everything. So they studied everything they saw in the US, and then they went home and they adapted it into their local environment, the local culture. And that's what became Kaizen. And I learned that the very basic, concept of Kaizen is 5S, right? The 5S forms the very basic of Kaizen. You don't need to spend money for you to transform your mindset, yeah? But the 5S just takes you through, I think the first step is sorting things. The second step is arranging them properly. The third S is cleaning. So you sort things. That's the first S. You arrange them in their kind. That's the second S. Then the third S is you clean, your surrounding. And then the fourth S is you don't stop. You don't do the cleaning once. You continue doing the cleaning continuously. And the last S, which binds everything together now, is discipline. You got to be self-disciplined for you to continue maintaining this routine, right? And this is what every Japanese does in their workplace, in their homes, in schools. We saw it even at the World Cup. They lost the games, or they were knocked off the World Cup, but what did they do? We saw them cleaning up because their way of life, right? So yeah, we are talking localizing. It's not just the Japanese who did it in less than 10 years. The Chinese have done the same. Their economy has grown now because they came to the West, to the US and Europe. They learned also, but they took back the lessons. The Indian, and that's what these conversations we are having and what we are doing. So thank you so much, Mr. Femin. We'll continue our conversations later on. We got to move on. We have another distinguished speaker tonight. Our next speaker brings extensive experience across emerging technologies. Okay, she works with inclusion, if you like, sustainable digital transformation. Okay, so I know our work spans around technology leadership, policy engagement, innovation ecosystem, contributing conversations, shaping the future of digital economies globally. And I loved some of the lessons when I was doing my blockchain studies at Al-Tashi. Dr. Tami also took us in some of the lessons. There were some lessons on inclusion, the visuals and the lessons there, and it was so impactful, So I don't want to talk much, I don't want to preempt, but I'll allow her to, in order for me not to do injustice to the work that she does, she's going to start with giving us, her background, and then she's going to go into her presentation. So, Dr. Tami, it's my.
Thank you. I'm going to share. However, I think I just closed the wrong PowerPoint. So give me a second to reopen. Try this again. Here we go. I have all these windows open. So, all right, let's do this. See if I can share. So I love the previous discussion because I think mine is probably more globally or like big picture, and that was probably that. But we're going to zoom out and talk about what does the future work look like in the workplace. We see what is the word I'm looking for? We see a little glimpses. That's the word. We see a glimpse of what that is already. We're already in the midst of this, but just looking at where we're going and in the workplace, but looking at the previous the future of work presentation that was just given about moving to the skills mindset. So and so mine, we're going to kind of zoom out and talk about it. But I am going to talk about automations in the way that is shifting and changing as we're moving forward. So I'm just going to get right into it. And let me just say first a little bit about, get my icons up here. I'm hoping you can see the right screen. not looking at each other? Okay, yeah, okay. So I am Dr. Tammy Francis. I talk about all things digital transformation in the sense that I talk about Web3 and AI. I talk about anything learning and development. And so anything that makes us better as individuals, but also those things that make us better as a collective. And a lot of my work is around purpose, mindset, and thinking about those things. So this presentation is probably more on mindset in a weird sort of way in talking about technology, because I want you to think about leverage. So that is definitely where we're going. So let's do that. So I want to just briefly just talk about what we've been talking about is kind of this, what is this, half century, nearly a century? So we're going to talk about centuries. So I do want to just make the industrial revolutions a springboard for what we're going to talk about and looking at them as a whole. Because one thing you'll see in progression is, one, look at the timeline at the bottom of this slide with the industrial revolutions. You see that those shifts have happened quicker as time go on. Before, it was a whole century when things happened. And then it started becoming 10 and 20 years and it started decreasing. So that became a thing as well, right? And so I just want to mention that that is a big shift. And to now where we are all about robotics, we are talking about augmentation. We're talking about how are we using things. And so right now we're talking about what is this purpose? You know, when things started being automated, it was really about profit and how can we leverage the profit. And yes, we're still about profit, don't get me wrong, but now it's like, what are we using this for? How are we using these things? And so we're shifting into what I think is we are in the fifth industrial revolution. And so what does it look like to be working? To whether you have a business or you have a job, what does that look like? And so, you know, I know we talk about Web3, and yes, I'm with it. I talk about Web3 too. But really, when I think about education, when I think about those things that make the environment where we can all transition, having access to and devices. Think about that. Yes, with technology and all these things with AI, technology is moving. We're in Web3. Some people are talking about Web4. Some people are even talking about Web5. But we're really moving, right? But there's some things that are just not moving at the same rate and the same pace. And I think of that as being security and education. And so that's where I come in by me being learning and development. So what is this digital transformation I speak of? Digital transformation is where we are integrating technology in all areas of business. And we're thinking about what does this look like for the different areas, for the consumers, for you as a worker or as a business owner. We're thinking about that, or whatever, or I'm an educator. So even as an educator, what does that look like for us? And so we're fundamentally changing how we are operating and how we deliver value to those that we serve. So if I asked you, who do you serve and how do you serve them? We're talking about how do you deliver value to them, and you deliver that more efficiently and more completely. And so right now there's this cultural change that's requiring us to really think about, how do we challenge the status quo? What are we going to do to experiment, and how do we get comfortable with things that don't work well? And so this digital transformation is all about creating value by continuously deploying tech at scale. How do we improve the customer experience? How many of us have been on an app or some sort of platform and we're like, oh my goodness, this is horrible, this is clunky, it's not working. And our user experience was awful. But later you get back on there, you're like, oh, wait, this is better. This is improved. That's what digital transformation does. It takes service from being what to, oh, this feels better. This is better. And it will increase AI for the last hour or 45 minutes. And what that looks like, what technology looks like now. And part of that is about efficiency. Those conversations about how do we speed up things? How do we make them more efficient? So when I think about digital transformation, I put them in 4 buckets. I put them in a cultural bucket, like how do we culturally transform? Then communication, how do we communicate? How does this change or adjust our communication? And then talent, what we're talking about today, future of work, or what I'm talking about, future of work. How does that change? And then the technology itself, what does that look like? So I'm just going to mention a few of these. I'm not going deep into any of these, except maybe the technology and the talent one. But I want to just mention that when I think of it, I think that there is a holistic view, but I'm just going to talk about a piece of it today for the sake of time and because I know that I'm probably going to overstay my welcome already. So one thing that we think about workplace. So if we just think about the workplace, wherever you work, wherever you generate revenue or income, what does that look like? And is it flexible? Is where you're working flexible? Does it allow for you to accommodate the differences in the kinds of work that you do and the workers or the people that are in that same environment and the technology? I think when we think about digital transformation, when we think about future of work, we must think about, are these things now addressing the needs of all involved? And is it flexible? And creating an opportunity to move into more dynamic models of working. And what could that look like? I think it's about, attracting people not only to come to the office, but also to work from home and knowing where they thrive. I found that I really like, because I'm a teacher at heart, like educator is my lane, educator is what I do and what I love. But what I also know about myself now, since the pandemic, since 2020, is that I really thrive and am more productive when I have large chunks or days when I can work at home. Because then I can get the things done that I need to do. So then when I'm in the presence of other people, I can be social, I can be engaging, I can do the teaching that I like to do. And so I've had to restructure even my work a little differently. So now Tuesdays and Thursdays, I go into the office, but on Monday, Wednesday, I am generally working at home unless I have a meeting at the office. And so those are the things that we need to start thinking and learning about ourselves. That's something I want you to start thinking about. Where do you thrive and work best? Do you work best when you're not at home and seeing all the laundry and all the things that you have to do? Or do you actually thrive at home and those things don't bother you and you can actually focus and stay on track and you're disciplined enough to do what you need to do? Or are you like me and both work for you? And so I think that's part of, we're talking about digital transformation. We're also thinking about, where do we earn our income? Where do we generate revenue? And how do we thrive where we are? And so, I'm just going to go through the next few slides real quick because we already, this is really hot right now. And I think we've all been exposed to what they are and how they do this. But my question is for you, when you see this slide and we think about the different models and being flexible as we're going forward, what is your preference? And in the chat, you can even tell me what is your preference. If you prefer in-person, flexible, hybrid, or remote, right? What is your preference? And when I say flexible is typically where people, they kind of generate their own kind of schedule. And it's a little different. Like they decide when they go in the office. And mine is probably more flexible, rather than hybrid, because I choose the times when I can go into the office, even on the days that I'm working at home. But in the chat, if you'll just tell me your preference, I'm just curious as to what your preference is. And if you have a preference, and do you know your preference and where you think, because I think that that says a lot. A key pillar of hybrid work is to shift from focusing on location and hours, but work to the outcomes that are delivered. So basically, most people wanted you to be in office, and most places were designed where you had to go in and clock out and do all those things. Now you can clock in and clock out from home because you can do it on your computer. But now it's about what is the outcome. Teaching, we do need to have face-to-face classes. So there needs to be opportunities for face-to-face. But there's also online classes. So that's also an opportunity. So it really does depend on your industry and where you work. And so I just want you to think about that there are basically these 5 different types of hybrid work. And that's probably where we're moving to now that we're moving, when we talk about workplace transformational and transformation and digital transformation, is whether it's going to be mandatory office time with flex days, or if it's going to be office first, or if it's going to be hybrid, if it's going to be remote, or you only work from home and on site a few days. Like, all of that means something different depending on your industry. All right, I just wanted to mention that because I wanted to just kind of level set with that and know that we're all working in different spaces and do things differently. For those of us that are doing this global work, while myself, most of it is online. There is no opportunity for hybrid unless there's a conference or a trip that you can take to go in, right? But most of it is definitely online. So let's talk about you. What about you? You and the talent, right? Digital transformation is about technology. And I think Frederick said it earlier, you know, I'm really big about being a Jedi, justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. And so dismantling systems, barriers, that opportunities for people of color. I always think about that. Like, how do we get those of us who are Black or brown, how do we get us access to the things that we need to be successful, thrive, and fuel our livelihood, right? And so part of that, when we're looking at the future, is technology. And I'm talking about reskilling, upskilling, and retooling. Upskilling means you learn a new skill, you deepen something that your expertise by learning something that's more intentional is really going up, right? It's more. Reskilling is where you learn something totally different, right? Where you're totally switching lanes, you're doing something different, and you're moving from a new company or a new role. Whereas retooling is the technology, and the technology, I think, is what you're getting a lot of this next over the 3 days here, is talking about the technology and how it affects different groups, women, how it affects those of us who are workforce, how it affects just different people. And so the technology is something that we are having to learn, and you may even have some sessions on the actual tech. So let's put it all together: digital transformation and workplace. Digital transformation strategy improves productivity and performance. And I think I've mentioned that over and over. Automation is not replacing people. It is reshaping the roles and redefining the value. And so workplace automation is using technology, AI, digital systems to perform repetitive and predictable and data-driven tasks that are traditionally done by humans. And so now it's looking at it different. It's not replacing humans, and using these technologies are not replacing humans, but it's trying to figure out what are some tasks we can give to the technology and then free up humans to do the more meaningful task. Because that's what we want. We want humans to do the more meaningful task. All right. In addition, you know, let's talk about what are some of the things that are changing, right? That's one of them, is changing what we focus on and making sure humans are utilized in the best way possible, that we are using humans to do those things that are meaningful and that can't be done by machines, right? Routine administrative tasks, increased automation. The work is shifting from task execution to problem decision making. That's what we need the humans for. We need humans to problem solve. We need humans to do the decision making, and we use the technology to execute. And that's the difference. So technology and all these technologies, Web3 is not taking your job, but what it is changing your job and how you do it, right? And it's about us collaborating with the digital tools and think of them as partners. That's why you see a lot of training now talking about AI as more collaborative partners and the TD. It offers companies the use at all these things, like what is the focus? Creator and community driven economy. So community is really big now. Um, and then, of course, AI enables some of that, but we still need you. So AI should not augment human intelligence, should augment human intelligence, and should not replace it. So I said that a couple of times. Diverse groups of programmers are necessary. So if you are thinking about what do you want to do in the future, how you position yourself, just know that we need you. We need to help eliminate some of the biases that exist. Automation removes friction. It creates space for higher level thinking, innovation, and purpose-driven work. Let's say that again for the people in the back. It creates space for higher level thinking. That's why we need humans. It creates space for innovation. For now, you can be creative. Now you're not trying to count out 100,000 pins. Now you can use it to figure out how you can create a better pin. Now you can create something. Now you have space to create and be creative. Purpose-driven work. And so the last line is what I'll leave you with is the future belongs to those who move from technology users to not just being a user to a technology integrator. So now you're going to integrate technology into what you do, but also to be a leader. And that's to be on this side of the conversation is now you're leading the conversations. Now you're talking about it. Now you're teaching. And so that is the mindset shift. So when I said this presentation is about mindset, that's basically what it is us shifting from not just being users of technology, but being creators, thinkers, and leaders in technology. And that's what I'll leave you with. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you. And I am going to stop sharing. So give me one moment. And then that way we can talk. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Just doing stuff. Well, can you hear me? I think for me, I'm excited about multiplying myself, right? It's kind of this cloning thing without it actually being an actual clone. I don't want two of me, but I do need more hands on deck. And so I like the opportunity that technology is now encouraging us to, whether you're talking about AI agents or scheduling tasks or doing other things, you can have other things. So you can have the technology helping you with your creation. Like you can be creative. There's a space for you to be creative, but then you also have all these people who are not real people, right? So we don't have to worry about schedules. I don't have to worry about when you are available. I can utilize the technology in that way. And so that way, when I do connect with real people, then it's easier for me to get things done and to do things. I can be more efficient. So I am looking forward and embracing that aspect of it. I will say that I am very new to that aspect of it, but I've been playing with a few things and it has really made my life better. And I find that I have more ideas, that now I have an opportunity to have more and more ideas. So I love it. I see Professor Johannes. What do you say? Um, let's ask Shiva how he made multiple avatars and arms. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically one of the Indian gods.
Oh, Professor.
It's basically one of the Indian gods, still avatar spike. Oh, help! It's in the countryside, German internet. So, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better.
Okay. So it was just a referral to the Indian god Shiva, usually shown as multiple arms. You have probably seen this god. And he has even multiple avatars, like the good one, the, let's say, promising and the helpful one, as well as the fierce one, being the god of war. So the Indians will be absolutely in the skills, in the position to help us knowing this trick. So I think it's always good to get into history and even religions and so on, because it's accumulated knowledge over the years or centuries or even millennia. Like as well, to stress one of the sayings, I bet in very early days in the Stone Age, sorry, there were people being, let's say, afraid of being replaced or losing their jobs, watching fire when someone invented a way to make fire and not just caring for it and carrying it around over a long distance in a really hard environment. But over the years, it showed up. We still are using fire. It's still one of the, let's say, basis of our societies, like 10,000 years or 20,000 years in the past. And there's still people caring about fire in the good way, like firefighters, or on the other way, making big fun. It's fireworkers. And we have so many people caring about the multiple evolved parts and areas where fire is used. So it's understandable that one fears something, but in the end, over a long time, it turns out it just grows. Absolutely. Absolutely. The area of occupation won't shrink, it just changes a bit and diversifies.
Yeah, I'll take it. So one, it really depends on the industry. This would be an industry. So the specific answer will be by industry. So it depends on what you're doing. But the way to for everybody to kind of know what that is to make a list of the people that is on your job or that you employ if you're the business owner, that you employ that don't get to the task that you want them to do. Like they never have time to finish what you want them to do. Because then you would look at their job list. What are the tasks on their list? If this person is spending 3 hours, I'm going to make up something. So I'm making this up. I don't know what your industry is. If this person is spending 3 hours on checking email and sorting through emails and junk mail before they can get to the task that is generating you money, sorting, right? Where there you automate that part so that person can do more of whatever. So that person still keeps their job. They're just now focused on what is more important to generating income for that company. And that's kind of how you would look at it for everything. I think I'm an educator. And so I can spend hours and hours on lesson planning. And that doesn't allow me to connect with students and meet with students and the students are what's bringing in the income. The students are paying the tuition. So that's where the revenue comes from. So if I were to spend less time on creating my lesson plans and spend more time teaching and connecting with my students, that is going to generate income. So for me and my job in education include some automation with that lesson planning process so it takes me less time. There's always going to be a human in the loop, especially when it comes to things like that and dealing with creativity. So I'll split or the draft can be generated using AI or some kind of something that's automated, right? Each week. And then that means instead of me spending 5 hours on a lesson plan, I'm spending one. And that means free up me time for me to have office hours with my students and more time in teaching and planning the actual activity and how I can connect with my students. That's just one example. And so I'm still needed. I'm still valued. My job is still needed. It's just that what I'm focused on is more meaningful. And that's how I recommend people delete this task and delete this person. I won't say it's for every job. It's probably for at least 85% of jobs. You can look at them and say, you still need a human, but I would rather a human do X, Y, Z. And that's what you would shift your focus. Then you assess that you need to automate. And so if you're in agriculture, mining, and timber, I have no idea what that is all about. Totally clueless. So I'm going to be very transparent in that. But I'm sure there may be times, maybe there's a report, right, that you have to prepare. Maybe you feed, I'm going to use AI just because that's hot right now. Maybe you feed that into the thing and then somebody creates a report about what happened. Or if they have to do a report for the end of the day and what they have accomplished, right? How many trees they knocked down, how many crops are there. So maybe that part of it is automated, but the labor, the part that is needed, having a person go out and check, like I don't know anything about agriculture, mining, and timber. I'm sorry. So I'm going to be very basic. I'm going to go from a gardener standpoint. So maybe there's someone that needs to be out there with the crops, checking the crops, physically laying eyes on the crops, right? Not necessarily. So maybe that report or whatever is needed to chronicle or create the history for that production of those crops, maybe that's not as necessary as it is. Of course, we know in blockchain, there's now ways to track um, things from the farm to the table, right? And so there's so many other ways. And so it's just looking at the ways that apply to your industry. And if it doesn't, and if it's not something that you're ready, or it's cost something you do immediate, but there may be some tasks that you realize, wait, if we just added so that person can spend more time doing XYZ. And that's the way I think when I think of automation. I think of one, it's coming, one is here. And then two, if I'm going to use it in my space, if I'm going to be in charge of it and I can control it in my space, that's how I want to control it. Because I still want to make sure that I'm creating a valuable and quality product. And in order to do that, you need a human. You really need a human. I don't know if I want a machine or a robot telling me if that tomato is a good tomato. I want a human to tell me that. But I realize that some of that is happening. But I'm just saying, if it's something that I have control of, I realize there's some things we don't. But yeah, so I apologize. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, Jek Decor, I think. I'm sorry, I don't know much about agriculture, mining, and timber. I try to stay from outside. I'm in Texas, where it's 100 and something degrees. But and I'm probably a little princess at heart, but I will say that if you look at what people are spending their time on and what is more valuable to the product you're creating or you're producing, that's probably more important. And that's probably where you want to shift your focus. And then include some automation. Nothing has to be completely automated. There may be a part of it that is automated that helps things move faster so you can be more productive and bring in more revenue. Or London, sorry, London. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I will be back in the, let's say, early noon, because afternoon I will be busy and celebration parts here. I have to be present and can't attend. Excuse me, I just jumped into the car. Um, I'll be there from like early noon to early afternoon, but later on I have to attend, let's say, local events here. So I can't attend the full day, unfortunately. No, I will attend, like from 2 o'clock or something like that. Oh, okay. This is the Paris Blockchain Week. Paris Blockchain Week, really interesting, and I even met some guys from Cardano. Fortunately, your guy wasn't there at the exhibition, but I met his chief, and just in very short words, those guys really were excited from what of projects. Yeah, a bit. I'll give you a bit of information for maybe as well from the SEC days, which was the biggest company here in Europe and Germany meeting about cybersecurity. It's like Procter and Gamble, like Avata, Schwartau, and whatever else big companies placing their measures and presenting what happened to them in means of cybersecurity and what the actual state out there. So kind of interesting as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dawn is breaking, a continent awakening. Youth are rise, builders of a brand new day. Africa's future leading in a global way. Be told. We stand together, stronger than before. Doors are opening. Africa is so much more.
Twendembele, Africa kizazi
Bright that we share. Startups breaking barriers, talent taking shape. No limits on imagination, no boundary, no gate.